Australia's become a nation of swingers.
We've tried it before, and it's trying it now.
Just get down and really get stuck into it.
This seems to be the trend these days.
Politically, at least.
There was undoubtedly a swing.
We have taken a swing against us.
I even have a sort of cane in my hand.
Back in the 1960s, more than 70% of us said we always vote for the same party. But by 2022, that had nearly halved to just 37%. If you're a politician, that's a lot more people up for grabs.
World's best.
Righto, cheapest.
There are far more swing and soft voters than there's ever been at any time in Australian history.
It's a very tiring business.
This is politics, and you'd expect them to play it this way.
I mean, really, is that what you expect?
Something has changed, and this graph is what it's all about. It used to be the case that the major parties would reliably get more than 40% of the primary vote. That primary vote has fallen and fallen. All the while, the primary vote for everyone else has grown and grown.
That's fabulous.
And I want to find out why.
Show and tell, is it?
By asking undecided voters and seeing the research that campaigns are doing behind closed doors every day.
They promise these things, but does it actually happen?
I've never seen things this expensive.
Make Australia great again.
Lifting the lid on the politicians' strategies.
There is so much espionage. At first, it's horrifying, and then it sort of becomes a little bit fun.
Oh, no assistance here at all.
And how they're trying to manipulate us.
Everyone they see is scripted. The whole thing is a construct.
So sunshine is far away from where we are.
From Albany to Zetland, Adelaide to Zilmere.
What's this guy? Let's see.
What is some more?
Australia's federal political story has been written over 124 years.
A nation for a continent, and a continent for a nation.
Over the decades, parties formed and fell apart until the two sides of politics we know today came to dominate the landscape. And for a long time, most of us were loyal to our side.
Party loyalty really rested on our occupation for a long time.
If I knew your job, your religion, your income, I'd be able to make a pretty good guess of how you'd vote.
Something that you perhaps inherit from your parents.
I always vote for the same party, so regardless of what candidate is in.
But somewhere along the way, we started to fall out of love with the big parties.
No, I can't bother voting full stop, so they're all a bunch of idiots.
They're all full of shit.
Labor and Liberal?
Both of them, one say one thing, one says the other. They're both biting at each other and people get caught in between.
This guy is a swinger. Swing voters come in all shapes and sizes, from the generally confused.
What to you are the main issues involved in this election?
Well, they're
to the genuinely uncommitted.
You know already the name of the man you're going to vote for.
No, I don't.
Well, when will you know?
When I go inside.
Now, people are voting with their vote.
Swing voters are where all the action's at.
Last election, 20 seats changed hands, and they went to a much wider group of parties and people than usual. Here's that graph again. The Labor government was elected in 2022 with the lowest primary vote of a government since the 1930s. We have a massive crossbench of minor parties and independents, and there are more trying to join them this year.
We're returning to a much more normal, unstable world.
Swingers are the ones who decide an election, and so swingers are the ones that parties try to appeal to the most. But swingers are also the ones that often think
They're all full of shit.
we're all about to take part in the great exercise of democracy. Whether you're a political nerd or you're not paying any attention. 18 million of us making a choice about who walks these halls and who runs the country. I'm Casey Briggs, and I'm travelling the country to find out not who will win this election, but how they'll do it. And who needs to be persuaded? The result of this election is up in the air. This election, like every election, is up to the swingers. In Western Sydney, a cultural melting pot, Australia just got a little bit bigger.
All the rights, responsibilities and freedoms of citizenship are now yours.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. Oi, oi, oi.
Across the country, tens of thousands are becoming citizens on a day where people celebrate, reflect on their country and what they want it to be.
Me and my family have worked hard, made a lot of sacrifices to come here, and I think it is a recognition of our hard work, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of my life.
I've been very thankful to Australia, the people, the culture, very grateful for it. Thank you.
I think one of the first Australian values is your ethics, your empathy, your inclusion.
The respect that's shown, the inclusivity, the diversity, it's really wonderful living in a country like this.
In a matter of weeks, they'll get to have their say on who governs them.
I would think I'll prioritize someone who puts Australia and Australia's people at the centre of its focus.
It's all going to be new to me, but I'm really excited and looking forward to do the voting for the first time.
And to give opportunities for young people, to be honest, yeah. More opportunities.
The Prime Minister is now leaving the lodge, so this is it.
It's now on. Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton will spend the next 5 weeks trying to convince Australians they're best placed to lead the country for the next 3 years. Voters are increasingly swingy. But then again, so are our leaders.
If Anthony Albanese wins this election, he'll be the first Australian Prime Minister to win 2 elections in a row since John Howard in 2004. For 21 years, we've been swinging from PM to PM. But leadership turmoil is nothing new in this nation. It goes right back to the start. This is Edmund Barton, our first PM, sworn into office right here.
This is Centennial Park in Sydney. Floats and arches from many countries wish success to the new Federation of Australian States.
But Barton wasn't meant to be the first PM. Weeks earlier, the brand new Governor-General, Lord Hopetoun, had tapped Sir William Lyne to be Prime Minister. The thing is, Lyne had long campaigned against Federation, so it was an unusual choice to be the Federation's first leader.
Those who'd actually worked hard for Federation, such as Edmund Barton in New South Wales and Alfred Deakin in Victoria, refused to serve with him.
And 5 days after being chosen, he handed his commission back at 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve 1900. The job was given to Barton, and soon after that...
Here is the first federal cabinet, studded with names made famous in the fight for federation.
It became known as the Hopetoun Blunder.
In a sense, it was a kind of leadership spill. He really didn't have the support in the various states.
It was a tumultuous start to the nation, but eventually things settled down. We've got Labor on the left, the Liberals and Nationals on the right. We've had a long, stable period in politics. In the second half of the 20th century, those parties won 2,609 out of the 2,619 seats in general elections. 99.6% of them, a phenomenal success rate. That's changed, but this time, it's not a blunder. It's what voters want. If you're interested in politics, if you're the kind of person who watches and reads the news every day, there's one thing you have to understand about how this campaign will work. It's probably not for you. They're not talking to you. For the most part, they're assuming you've already decided how to vote. The targets of a campaign are the swing voters and the soft voters. Swing voters are those who genuinely change their mind from election to election. They're completely up for grabs.
The nature of being a swing voter is that you are prepared to kind of move your vote around. For political operatives, they don't like that. They don't respect it, but they have to understand it.
And they're also chasing soft voters. Soft voters might lean one way and usually vote that way, but they're persuadable if you can reach them in the right way, at the right time, with the right message. And that's a big group now.
It's the largest group of uncommitted and soft voters we've ever had in Australian history. And the people or party that can appeal to those and say, we're on your side, will be the winner.
Just look at soft voters, where the numbers are huge. Resolve, which conducts polls for the 9 newspapers, asks its respondents, how firm are you with your vote? Its February poll found 39% of voters were uncommitted. They weren't locked in. In late February 2022, just before the last election, the same poll had just 22% uncommitted. And a separate poll by Essential Research in March found 48% of voters were undecided or open to changing their mind, with coalition voters seeming the most locked in.
You know, you go back to the Howard era, the soft voter segment in Australia was in the 20s, 25%. And as the campaign sort of started taking shape, it'd narrow into around 15% soft vote. So there's a much bigger soft vote cohort today than there's ever been.
In many cases, what political parties are trying to do is make sure that their soft voters are pretty much locked in the months leading up to an election.
It starts with the opening pitches.
So Australian elections always follow a pretty tried and tested formula.
Well, here we go again.
This election is a choice between Labor's plan to keep building or Peter Dutton's promise to cut.
Well, this election is a choice about who can better manage our economy.
If that sounds familiar, well...
Australians will have a very clear choice.
It's a choice between a government you know and a Labor opposition that you don't.
It is a clear choice between our careful planning and their patchwork of last-minute promises and gimmicks.
The leaders are trying to set the terms of the contest on the ground that they think will attract swing and soft voters to them. And they want journalists and voters to accept those terms.
It's about convincing voters that this election is about health or this election is about security, and that while we've got their brains primed to think about those two things, they will potentially vote differently.
Stopping the boats. Have we stopped the boats?
We stopped the boats.
Education revolution.
Education revolution.
An education revolution.
It's not a particularly inspiring or edifying way of running politics, but in a compulsory voting system where everyone's going to turn out, all we have to do is get voters' brains turned on to the thing that we want our voters thinking about.
That's not a judgment, it's just reality. You are totally entitled to pay absolutely no attention to politics. You shouldn't have to read all the policies and religiously read the news to participate in our democracy.
We don't read policies. I don't read policies, and this is literally my job. We just want voters thinking in high-level terms so they can go about their day. For the parties, that means we just keep repeating the same message over and over and over. You will hear health, you will hear Medicare, you will hear security, you will hear jobs and growth. And both parties criticise each other for doing it. They're all doing it. Every party around the world is doing it. It's the shortcut to votes.
So how do you find a swing voter?
As it's gotten bigger, it's become a lot more diverse, a lot harder to pin down who exactly these people are.
You can't just ask them.
Saying that you're a dedicated voter to a particular political party isn't a sign of loyalty anymore, it's a sign of stupidity for a lot of people, because they think, why would you vote for one political party? Why would you be loyal? It's fashionable to say, I'm a swinging voter, I'll do my own research and make a decision based on what actually happens. But we know that that often doesn't happen.
These are the hardest people for candidates and parties to reach. There are entire industries set up to find them and find out what they want. So let's stop talking about swing voters and start talking to them. In this room in outer Melbourne, we're bringing undecided voters together in an activity that campaigns conduct all the time, but we rarely get to see. A focus group. We've asked the team at Redbridge, conducting the focus group for us, to try as hard as possible to find genuinely undecided voters.
I know there's an election coming. I'm pretty sure it's this year.
I couldn't even tell you who's running this year for Australia.
I didn't even know there was an election coming up, to be honest.
Now that I know, I'll probably do a little bit of research.
Watching on with me are former Labor strategist Samaras and former Liberal strategist Tony Barry.
Ideally, you want people in the room who are not interested in politics.
What's that?
That's basically that's the genuine undecided voter, disconnected from politics. They don't consume political news like political junkies do.
Yeah, the benefit with focus groups over quantitative research is qualitative research gives you great creative leads, deeper thinking about how they see issues and how they view it. You get that touch and feel about why they feel the way they do.
Polling tells us over and over again that the cost of living is the #1 most important issue this election. Ipsos research puts it far and away at the top of the list. Nearly 2/3 of Australians rank it in the top 3 issues for the country. And most of the other issues in the top 5 relate to people's budgets as well. A focus group tells us more about how the cost of living will drive their vote and what they think of how politicians are responding.
Just on that interest rates question, does it give you more confidence that maybe the government's got the economy and inflation under the control now that we've got an interest rate in the bag, or doesn't it, Linda?
No. I just see it as look, it's great. I'm not complaining that there's an interest cut, but I think considering where my mortgage was 5 years ago to where it is now, it doesn't even cut it.
I don't know about my little one. Maybe in the future, after 10 years or when he grows up, or she grows up, what will happen, how he or she can buy the house.
Back in the day, like I would spend on maybe $50 and then I'd have a full massive bag full of shopping. You know, $50 now, like you might have like 10 items, not even.
I've got a little one, I've got 2 more on the way, and it's just, I'm just constantly worried about everything going up.
I mean, this is a window into the lived experience of young mothers out there in the outer suburbs, and they're mostly millennials. They're working longer hours, they're having to take extra work, an extra job. They're spending less time with their kids. It's frustrating them. It's causing mass anxiety. No surprise, it's this particular group of Australians who are a big problem for the Albanese government, and they are gravitating towards Dutton.
I mean, a lot of commentators ask, why is the coalition now competitive with the female vote? Whereas in 2022, the vote crashed in that cohort. And I mean, that's a perfect explanation why.
Cost of living, housing, healthcare, these are issues that Labor used to own, right? Has something changed?
Yeah, the last 2 years. If you're a Gen Xer and older, you probably remember the recession of the early 1990s. But for these Australians, first time ever.
This group was held soon after Labor's promise to fund increased bulk billing by doctors, an announcement quickly matched by the coalition. A promise welcomed by these undecided voters to a point.
Even though, yes, I see it as a positive announcement, but I don't think it's the answer. I think there's a lot more that has to happen.
I think it used to work better. It used to work better 5 years ago. I don't know what happened.
What's happening?
Where we started having to pay to go visit $60, $70, and we can't get in to get an appointment. But before, I never had a problem going to the doctors.
So do you feel like this announcement will help that situation?
I think if it was something they were to implement, then I think it would definitely be a good thing.
I know she said if they're to implement, does that mean you're not sure what they'll do with this?
They can say one thing and do another, and a lot of people aren't certain, but if they were to implement this, it would definitely be something that would stick with me for the next election.
In other words, I've not seen them do it for 2 years, therefore I don't really trust that they will. And it's profound, particularly in the health space, because Australians have seen what governments are capable of during the pandemic. So they're very cynical because they've seen what governments are truly capable of actually achieving.
Not every swing voter is created equal, but these ones in McEwen, they're the people that the campaigns are trying to reach by all means necessary.
How do you talk to people? Some of it's old-fashioned, so being at a train station, at a bus stop, knocking on people's doors.
We take a mobile office down to a coffee shop.
Events twice a week across the electorate.
11 listening posts on the weekend.
Put on a barbecue.
Different ways to communicate on social media.
I also do a lot of surveys.
Emails is still powerful as well.
We meticulously record the emails that we've received.
And I have a Xiaohongshu Red Note account as well as WeChat.
Cacao talk for the Korean community.
I see the listening part of the job as being at least as important, if not more important, than the talking part of the job.
It's important to remain visible and accessible as a community representative.
If you want to be visible and accessible, You could do worse than taking big signs with your face on them to a commuter hub at peak hour.
Good to see you, mate. Catch up.
Morning.
My dad tells me I was named after Keith Richards, and I don't know what that means for politics, but he's a fit and healthy man. So,
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Keith Richards.
I feel like as someone who's young, like with the climate.
Oh, thank you very much. Have a good day. Cheers.
Lovely to meet you.
Oh, you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, you gotta get on bus. All right, see ya.
These first-term MPs are all trying to win over swingers in their seat. There are similarities in their campaign experiences, like a whole lot of rejection.
Would you like a paper to read on the way in? No worries.
Can I give you one of those? I'm Kate Cheney.
There's some information about the urgent care clinic.
Would you like a paper to read? Oh, good. No worries.
Rejection after rejection after rejection. It's tough going. It must hurt a little bit to get rejected time after time after time here. You have to get a bit of a thick skin.
Oh, look, you do, but you don't take it personally. People are going to work and they're busy, and maybe the last thing they want to do is turn their mind to an election that they know is coming. I think people want to know that you're making an effort, that you got up early and then you made yourself available. No, well, lovely to meet you.
The market research company Ipsos runs a regular survey on how much trust we have in different occupations. MPs have never rated well. Last year, just 15% said they have trust in politicians. They actually came out even less trusted than advertising executives.
The rise of swinging voters can also be charted with the rise of, let's say, an anxiety about our democratic processes and I would say a culture of suspicion or a lack of trust in our institutions.
And that's a particular problem for the leaders of the parties. Let's go back to McEwen, a key seat this election. Labor's held it since 2010, but if the coalition can flip it, it would show they're winning back outer suburban voters and Peter Dutton's electoral strategy is working. In our focus group, there's not a lot of love for the PM.
What would you say have been Anthony Albanese's strengths?
To be honest, I don't know much. Oh, he's got a cool name, that's about it.
He looks approachable, charismatic. He's got a, but do I think he's a strong leader? No, I haven't, but you're thinking positive, so I've got to stand.
Well, let's go. I think
we're going. Well, no, just that he didn't inspire me with confidence as a leader, but because of his, he's very clear about his background and his where he was coming from. I think there was a lot of hope.
What about you? The weaknesses of our Prime Minister?
I've heard him speak just randomly, but I haven't found charismatic or believable, I guess. I have just found him appearing dodgy, like most politicians, in my opinion.
Everyone sort of took his story and it really felt personal. He grew up, very working class and housing commission, and I think a lot of people had a lot of faith in him about that. They felt that finally someone's representing us. I feel like a lot of people felt quite disappointed with the lack of action that he gave.
Simon used a particular technique to try to work out how long they were going to stay on the positive. And it didn't take long. He was scratching at the surface and they were itching to actually get into the negative. Politics is all about storylines, and his storyline was housing commission, single mum, on the wrong side of the tracks. It worked for him at the last election. Now it's kind of working against him because there's an expectation that he should understand better the challenges and the anxieties that they're facing. And, his priorities do not seem to be aligned with their priorities.
Well, let's see what they make of Peter Dutton.
What about you, Neil?
Again, to be honest, I'm not really familiar with the individual. I've absolutely no idea. So.
But you?
I'm the same, I don't really know.
Are they not doing enough to promote it? Are they? I don't know,
We're all too worried about other things.
Yeah, I guess, that's true, yeah. Because you're stressing about everyday life, cost of living, and you're not thinking about that. I know the last election I really cared about was it Kevin Rudd, Kevin 07, with the stimulus package. I remember everyone was into politics then because it was like, what was that? Everyone got $1,000 in their bank account.
He's conservative by nature. He's in the old principles, so he's like a point of difference. But I think a lot of people see it as a weakness as well.
Is it Peter Dutton? You like him or you don't like him? That's what he stands for.
He knows what he wants and he knows what he represents, and I think it's a very, very different personality from our current leader.
He didn't want to stand and do a press conference because they had the Indigenous flag, so he's conservative in that way.
So, I don't necessarily agree with that, but at least he's got a stance and he's willing to put it out there and say, this is what I stand for.
Yeah, I think strategically Dutton's been very smart by just being himself, because they talk about authenticity throughout the group tonight so far, and they find, Albanese to be not meeting that authenticity test. If I was the Prime Minister and looking at these soft voters and their concluding thoughts, I'd be thinking, I'm putting them, I don't have them column. And qualitatively, if these people were voting right now, they're voting for Dutton. They want change.
You can't fatten a pig on market day. And so this is a manifestation, I would say, of 2 years. Trying to fix this problem in an election campaign is near impossible.
When it boils down to it, what do these swingers want? Leaders that relate to them, are authentic, follow through on their promises. That doesn't feel like such a ridiculous ask. It should be a pretty low bar to clear. So why do we hold ad makers in higher esteem than politicians? Well, there is a fourth thing that a lot of swing voters also want that they're not getting from their governments.
The majority of Australians want a fundamental change in the way that government works in this country.
We see it particularly in any of the work we do with younger voters and how they feel about politics, democracy and climate change. Climate change is up there with housing affordability and mental health as their biggest issues that matter to them. They look back at both sides of politics as having failed to address those issues effectively. And so I think increasingly you're going to see younger people either thinking that more engagement with politics is the answer to address those problems, or politics is the problem.
Voters are increasingly seeing the political class as coming from an entirely different world.
They're on these massive salaries that are paid by people like us who are having to pick up extra jobs and extra hours, but to them, they don't even have to look at their bank accounts before going to the shops.
I think they need to accept the fact that they're not celebrities. They just like to have these big moments. They'll be shaking everyone's hand and, making it all about them.
I don't think it's a radical statement to say that the major parties haven't been able to keep up with how the electorate and the political environment's changed. If they had, their primary votes probably wouldn't be falling. The way we get our news has changed. The way we live our lives is different. This is not the world of our parents. And parties aren't able to rely on long-standing voting habits of the past.
My parents told me Labor is for the people, working class, average, middle class, and then Liberal benefits the rich. But now I see them as very, very similar because when I've seen both of them in power, I haven't really seen much difference.
A lot of politically engaged people will get very mad to hear something like that. To them, the differences between Labor and the Liberals are clear. But to swingers...
Okay, well, Labor's not looking after the working class anymore. They haven't for the last 5 years or more. It's a little bit too little too late.
The parties don't really make much sense. For a lot of migrant voters, for instance, struggle with this for very good reason. Understanding what the parties are going to do is really difficult.
I'm thinking hard to make a choice.
When it gets closer, I will make my decision then.
I don't know, to be honest. What do you reckon?
And if you don't really know what the parties are going to do, and then you watch them play out government for the next 3 years and you think, that was unexpected. Why are you doing that? This erodes trust further.
The vast number of soft voters we have at the start of this election campaign, it's putting more seats in play than normal. We don't know who will win the election. It could be a really close one. And the people who think this...
They're all full of shit.
They're more powerful than ever. Next time, is the party over? How do parties react to the shifting tectonic plates of Australian politics? Whatever happened to party loyalty? That's next time on Swingers.